Upstream, are you with me? Rainbow, burning in the city, rushing through me. Downpour, upstream, are you with me? Feeling
Good afternoon, everyone. BC Richfield here, coming to you live from London. It's just got a couple of minutes past midday here, making it a few minutes past 1100 UTC. A really big shout out to all of you watching this live today, as well as all of our new viewers which are watching through Binance. Really good to have you all with us. Also, big shout out to all of you that watch this on catch up. I know it doesn't suit everybody where you're different places in the world, but got some lovely messages from you all, finding a lot of value from the streams, which I really do appreciate. So, what's the situation today? Well, as is typical on a Monday, our focus is going to be aligned with Bitcoin. We're also going to look at equity markets. We need to remember that it's Labor Day in the States today. So we do have equity market closure over there. So we want to just have a little bit of an eye on that as well. You know, obviously affects the trading volume, the volatility that comes into the day. So always keeping a little bit of an eye on that. Also, as we watch Monday's range play out again under slightly different catalysts with the US market being closed. Lucherino, good morning, my friend. Craigie boy, how are we doing? Work gets in the way. It does, unfortunately, mate, but always appreciate you taking the time to make these streams when you can. So basically, we're going to take a look at Bitcoin today. We are going to take a look as well, Ethereum, Solana, a couple of the major alts as well. But one thing that I just wanted to add in today, I know I typically do a news rundown for you guys. That isn't going to change. It's a very, very, very important part of trading. You know, ultimately our job as traders is to identify key news events, key fundamental drivers, and then use our technicals to overlay that. You know, ultimately, technicals are a tool for us to position ourselves. If we don't have an understanding of where the market's sitting, are we risk on, are we risk off? What's the current appetite? What are the major risks to the market? And I wanted to start sharing my thought process a little bit more with you guys on that. So while we're going to cover the news updates, obviously starting today, Monday, 1st of September. So very happy start of the week to everyone, or white rabbits, as we say here in the UK, to welcome in the new month. We don't have any major news events today, obviously, because the US market being closed. Now, my focus is always on the US market. It's the largest market in the world. The dollar is the world's reserve currency. It has the highest impact on other markets, okay, which is why the focus is there. Montreal X, good to have you with us, my friend. Very good to have you here. Right, so let's just take a very quick look at the news, and then I'm going to tell you the key drivers that I've spent this morning researching. One of the things that very few people cover, we've got some wonderful macro people in this space as well, London Crypto Club, Macro Alf, obviously my wonderful team member, KZM as well. So, you know, looking at the fundamental side, this is what we're trying to decant. So I'm going to give you that rundown. But first of all, let's take a look at the high impact news that's coming into the space. You know, US markets closed. So we see that Tuesday, 2nd of September is where we come in pretty hot with ISM manufacturing PMI. That's going to be interesting, looking at how we've seen the uptick in PPI as well, right? Showing that maybe the tariffs are starting to hurt a little bit now. The stockpiles are dwindling down. Wednesday, we come through. Then we've got JOLTS, job openings. All right. So again, a measure on the health of the economy. Is the economy healthy? Are there job positions opening? Are companies thriving? Are they able to employ people? Ultimately, all of these things also plug into inflation. Now, we've got a really big day on Thursday, right? ADP, non-farm employment change, unemployment claims, and then ISM services PMI. This is kind of the really big couple of days that end the week. Thursday and then Friday, we see average hourly earnings month on month, non-farm employment change, and unemployment rate. So with the focus very much on employment in the latter stages of the week, what we're looking for here is saying, okay, is it washing through? You know, are Americans able to get jobs? Is the economy healthy? The GDP is in a really good position at the moment, but we're seeing some weakness in PPI. This is starting to kind of transition and work its way through as we're looking at these major threats. So normally on a Monday morning, you get up with the sun, look at the news drivers, what's developed over the weekend, where do the threats exist for risk markets? As somebody as a NASDAQ and S&P 500 trading specialist, as well as obviously cryptocurrency, I want to know what's affecting risk markets. So I'm going to pop us back to the charts for a moment, and then we're going to cover that in a minute. But I just want to run you guys down what my thoughts are for the week as it's transpiring. So I've just written this summary out. So trading status, NQ is closed obviously for Labor Day, so that's the NASDAQ, as is obviously the S&P 500, everything else around it. So only futures are active. Of course, futures remain open. We expect to see that fall off in volume and volatility without the US participants. Let's not forget as well, major US stocks, Microsoft, Nvidia, etc., the Magnificent Seven, all part of those indexes. So we've seen a slight gain in US futures, global markets cautiously optimistic, retaining that cautious optimism. Why is it cautious? Well, because there's still a lot of kind of unknowns sat out there at the moment. All right, people say markets hate uncertainty. Even I say that, and it is true, but it's just about how they price this in. But the markets ultimately are still in a risk-off environment. Capital flow, liquidity is still very good. So ultimately, things still looking up. But there is a sense of caution at the moment. And we've seen that kind of wash through, the major catalyst being the PPI a few weeks back. In terms of regulatory risks, what am I looking at? Well, the court ruling, right? So this raises trade policy uncertainties and tariffs. Again, we say this every week, but they remain in limbo. This is the court ruling against Trump's legality of implying those tariffs. Okay, so again, what we're just doing here, we're painting a picture of risk. What are the key things that could drive the market down? What are the key catalysts where we could really kind of resurge with this bull run? Tech shakeup, right? Made a note of this. Alibaba coming into the market as a real kind of AI chip threat to Nvidia, which is going to kind of potentially have a big impact on that. So kind of dense Nvidia and, a much broader semiconductor sentiment that's really keeping the risk market strong at the moment. Remember, we had a similar situation when China released their version, like of OpenAI, DeepSeek, I think it was. And then, that took a massive hit, the indexes, because it took that hit to AI, and AI has been such a prominent level. Also, US have massively controlled the AI sector there, and now the emergence of China is questioning Nvidia's hold in China with their own emergence coming out, but also the threat to one of these major Goliaths that we see in the risk space at the moment. Tech is ultimately good for risk assets. Risk assets being positive is good for Bitcoin and good for cryptocurrencies. In terms of the global markets, Asia was a little bit mixed. I reviewed that this morning. The trade really is the upcoming US data. All right, it's the top of everybody's head. I expect markets to be relatively flat or mixed today anyway. Doesn't mean that they're going to be. It's just the expectation of the US markets being closed, and while the markets are waiting for new data to come in. And then in terms of what I'm looking at regarding the Federal Reserve, it's a high probability of rate cut betting by mid-September. We're talking about poly markets and the overall market generally having this priced in around about 90% at the moment. That means 90% for a 25 basis point cut heading into September's decision. That should be good for risk markets. All right. Obviously, anything that transpires between now and then that threatens that cut, if we start to see that number come down, as in the percentage chance, we could be in for a slightly kind of bumpier horizon as we move forward. So really, despite the market closure, interplay of trade policy uncertainty, AI competition, when we look at it that way, economic data is looming at the moment, which is setting the stage for, a potentially volatile week ahead. Starting with the calm before the storm today, I think, especially if we account for tech sector dynamics, monetary policy expectations with the rate cut, ultimately the bull run and its bullishness towards risk assets isn't over, and certainly hasn't taken as much of a hit as some of the kind of charts really might make you think. Remember, as we're focusing this session on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, we're at, the far end of the spectrum when it comes to risk assets. So, things are going to be put under a real microscope with this, and we're going to feel the impact in this industry as much as any other if tech takes that hit. So that's where we are. Hopefully you enjoyed the little news update, just to kind of plug you into the thought process that I share. This is what I go through every day before the markets. I review them in the evening, I review them the next morning before we get, the London, I try and do it most days before the London Open, and then look how the beginning of London plays out. I typically favor trading the New York sessions intraday. So by that point, I'm pretty well set up. And then on a Monday evening, we have our market analyst call where I'm blessed to have some of the best analysts in the space. We sit down, we dive, we really kind of dig deep into this information. We get wonderful fundamental input, market sentiment, narrative, technicals, bring that together. And then that's how we, plan for the weeks ahead. And it's why we've had, or part of the reason, that we've had such successful calls, right? So much so that lots of people have been kind of contacting us saying, guys, are these real? So just to show you very quickly, yes, they are real. They're all shared in real time. They're all registered. They're all put down. You can see them all as you come in. It's something I really should share more, but you can just get access to these now. We start showing them on the Birdnest page. You can go over, you can see call stats here. You can choose between the months that we're sharing them, cumulative profit, risk to reward profit, calls table. You can see every call that was taken. All of these are shared live for members to study, to review, to look at the positions that we're taking, why we're taking them, trade explanations, where we're entering, how we're doing. This is a mixture of intraday calls, swing trades, position trades, spot plays, some wonderful calls from KZM recently as well on the fundamental side for spot holdings. So if you want to take a look at this, go across, take a look, come and grab us. You can always ask any questions you would like. And obviously, come along and speak to other members. But 76% win rate down in July. Average risk to reward per trade was 1.77. Total profit 273.71. And a total risk to reward of 88.28. And I wasn't really going to do this, but somebody messaged the other day saying only 5.47%. What an effing joke. I don't know how to help you, mate. You're obviously, I don't know, need help that's beyond me. But if you really have that little understanding of trading, please don't just piss all your money away, or please do. Ultimately, we will need exit liquidity at some point, right? So go and have a look at that, guys. The other thing I'd really recommend, if there's anybody new on the stream, especially any of our fam joining us from Binance, you can go onto here, right? Down on the tools, you've got all these amazing tools to help you here. We've got breadth charts. We've got the crypto screener. All right. So you can look on here. It just gives you a nice snapshot here, weekly, daily, 4 hour. What do you want to see? Well, for opportunities, what I look at, I look for the weekly and the daily to be bullish. That's telling me the higher time frame drivers are aligned with my risk on sentiment. And then I want the 4 hour to be bearish. Why? Because I'd really like to see the 4 hour be that corrective move that then allows me to position, right? If we think about it like this, the impulse higher is coming from the weekly and the daily. The 4 hour is allowing us to buy the dip. If we're wrong and it turns, we've got our key levels mapped out, which we're going to do in a moment. And from there, we can look to trade it the other way. Bitcoin, we can see, has 3 bearish symbols at the moment. And we've seen the pressure that Bitcoin's come under while we've seen some of the alts thrive. Obviously, a little bit of a kibosh put on that recently as well. But for anybody that is new, under resources, we got these infographics. And these are what we've created over many, many years in the market. They're just little kind of fact sheets to help you if you're somebody who wants to look for what divergences are, if you're looking for order blocks, if you're looking for, pattern trading facts. There's so many really cool little resources in here, and all of these available for free. So please do make the most of them. Go and check them out and enjoy them. So back to the charts today. Now we're starting with the 4 hour here on Bitcoin, and we're going to kind of backwards rationalize this as we go. As we can see here, we got this purple box. Why is the box purple? Because we had a very, very small close above this morning. So the play is this. If I'm just going to go out to the daily for you, because this really is our clearest or most clear and obvious time frame here. I'm looking at a couple of different things here, right? Basically, we've got this upper range here, and then we've got this lower range here. And we can see quite clearly the trading that's taken place in these. Now, we're back down in this lower range. And one thing that I didn't really want to see was price coming back down below the all-time high that was set January this year, right? This level 109.998.9 here on OKX, be slightly different depending on what exchange you use. Is a really key level. We see how this level kept price suppressed. This is what the level that was capping the market. Deviation, underside retest, sell-off, deviation, sell-off, deviation, small sell-off. What's this? Consolidation below resistance, nice pop above it, breakout traders heaven, all right? But then we came back up to this level here as well. And now we can see this level here is also capping the market, just to kind of show you here on the weekly. The level to the upside being capped is the high of the week of the 7th of July, all right? And that is 119.9 0.488. Every day I step into the charts, I am trying to ask myself a simple set of questions, which is what's our kind of macro view? What key news drivers have we got? Where is the market reaching for? And then using the lower time frames to kind of position into those with a little bit of higher time frame confluence. So on a daily scale, the reason that you'll see this dotted line here is this represents the breaker block here. This is the up move before the purge of liquidity below this low. Why is that important for me? Well, if this is where buyers are trapped, then when price gets back to this level here, it should give them an opportunity to mitigate, meaning that they can cover, they can get out of their positions, they can even hedge or they can flip bias, whatever they want to do. But what I'm looking for is buyers are offside here, and this was a great place to buy. Previous all-time high, retesting into this consolidation here for the first time that led to this big move higher. So ultimately, this was a good place to look for some long trades, well, certainly in my opinion. And then the people that were long here, price has now flushed that out, gone below the low. Anybody that's not using a hard stop in this area or maybe has it a bit lower is holding on to this now. If with the processing of new information, you want to research things like the Bayesian methodology, with this meaning that we're always processing new information. You know, what catches a lot of traders out is they come up with a plan, they stick to that plan, the failure to process new information as it comes in. So with those traders now processing new information as we retest this area, what we were looking for is an underside retest of this, all right, then it now gives those traders that are offside here a chance to get out at either no loss or to minimize their loss, all right? So what it means to me is this is such a great position to short potentially. We're back down in this lower range. Obviously, price action is bearish here in terms of structure on the daily. So there's a lot of things kind of maneuvering themselves towards the idea that we could be seeing a move lower, right? We also have this bearish gap here. I'll just do this in red at the moment. So what's my plan? My plan's really simple. The plan is that this area is due to reject price until it proves otherwise for me. I'm somebody that likes a little bit of confirmation. This breaker block here, should we get price come up and close above this, I want to see an impulse move, a strong move, ideally in, 1 to 3 candles, large candles like this move was here. But what you'll notice is obviously we didn't come back above the up close candles that led to the purge. So with this here, strong move above here, look for this area to hold as support and then trade it up to the next resistance, which again, because this area has done such a good job of capping the market, we would be idiots to discount it. So we will look at that. Ultimately, price will want to head for liquidity above the all-time high. So that needs a little while to play out, not a problem. I also outlined a more aggressive play, right, down on the 4-hour, to say, where do we start to see the source of this recovery? And for me, it's here. All right, as I'm monitoring this on the 4-hour, I'm saying to myself, okay, I'm already not looking to actively trade today. US markets closed, low volatility and volume expected. I really want to see the major players in this market looking to move it. So we're coming from a position of strength. However, this gap here, we can see bearish gap created between this candle's low, this candle's higher. It's a strong move lower. What do we look for from these gaps? Well, the same as we looked at in this previous gap up here, price rebalancing these and then selling off. Doesn't have to come all the way through it. Can just come to about anywhere within it. And we look at that as a point of rejection. So when those areas, and I'm just going to get rid of that for a moment. When these areas then get closed above, they become violated, right? They become inversion gaps. Now, again, this really is about a strength of move, and this is a great candle. We're looking for this low to be swept. If you look back on the report that I put out last night, I share a couple of the timeframes on Twitter, and members at the Bird Nest get coverage on all timeframes as well. Quite simply looking for this low to be swept. It couldn't have worked out any better. And then a high expansion move. Now, it didn't really come that far above this here, and I don't like the fact that we're rejected at this wick. So what I'm saying to myself now is, did we get the exact move that I wanted? You can say, well, yeah, BC, you did say you wanted to see a move above this high, right? A move above this as an inversion. And then we can look at this area here, which the top of which is highlighted by the red dotted line as the breaker, to act as support to propel price higher. This entire area here is the area that I want to see hold, right? Why is that? Well, first of all, we got the breaker here that we just discussed, which are these 2 bullish candles or up close candles. These were the up close candles before price purged liquidity below this low and this low. We had this really strong reaction back above here. So again, really looking for this to reject price here, right? Now, the fact that price has carved through it, I'm now looking at this to offer support. So we've got this order block down here, or this area of demand that's just been confirmed. It's a high probability area of demand. Why? Because we've swept liquidity, closed back above it. So I want to see potential intraday longs being built in and around here. If we really flush out and come back below this area here, I think we're in for a move a lot lower. Jojo, how are you doing, my friend? Great to have you with us. And that's absolutely amazing. That is so cool. So guys, just want to give a really big shout out to the 1,200 viewers we've got just on Binance right now. Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. Do you know what we should absolutely do? After this, and my good friend Raz, an awesome trader as well, who's in the background making all this magic happen for us at the moment, has just suggested, and I completely agree, let's get some coverage of BNB today as well, shall we? So we're going to cover that next, and then we'll move on to Ethereum. So let's kind of finish up with where we are here. Hopefully that's all clear. This is the low time frame plan. We want to see this area hold here. Getting back down below this, I think we flush out a little bit lower. So looking for tentative long positions in here. Like I said, I'm not planning to actively trade today. If I get an A+ setup that just slaps me in the face, then I might be tempted in. But like I say, it's not really the day for me to be taking excessive risk. I'd rather step into the market tomorrow when we've had Monday's range play out, even though it could be a little bit, because we don't have full participation. But what we do have full participation in tomorrow is when the US markets are back open. So 4-hour plan, we need to hold this area here, use this to get above, feel really good getting back above this level here. In fact, let me have a look for the path that we were just discussing earlier, which was this price coming up. We expected a slightly bigger move above this here, maybe seeing some rejection at this point. Yeah, we've seen an initial pullback here. So want this area to hold, propel price back above here, giving us extra confirmation that price has now stepped back in above this level. Okay, so that's where we are on Bitcoin. Let's cover BNB. For our friends over at Binance, really big shout out for that today. Unfortunately, my counter is down, but we normally get about 2,500 to 3,000 people on an average stream live on a Monday. So if we've now got an extra 1,200 coming in from our friends at Binance, that's wonderful. So maybe might have as many as 4,000 or 5,000 people here today. So just to take a moment and say I really do appreciate each and every one of you for joining these streams and listening to me ramble on. And please do help me keep these streams relevant, help me keep them aligned with everything that you guys really kind of are aching for. Obviously, Wednesday, we do our chart request show as well when we cover anything. So you're welcome to that show. Bring the tickers, the instruments you want me to take a look at, and we'll chart them out live on the show for you. Monday's a little bit more of education mixed with news, mixed with kind of setting our stall out for the week. And my hope in that is that, looking at the process we use as a professional trading team here, someone myself who's been doing this full time for approaching 7 years now, that you get some understanding off of that. But please do reach out if you've got any ways you think that this could be improved. So without further ado, Jojo's always got some good alpha for us. So are you prepared for the big boys back to their trading desk after their long summer holiday this week? Exactly. Volatility might be back as well. Just be cautious. I think that's a really, really good word of warning here as well, right? So we're using that. We will take a look at the VIX, the volatility index, shortly as well, showing us where that kind of participation is taking place. But really good advice there from Jojo. So here we are with BNB. So let's take a look at this beast, shall we? In fact, it's been a long old time since last tracking this back from 2021. Let's get rid of all of this and start with a nice fresh. Let's start with a nice fresh channel here. Montreal X, you're very, very welcome, my friend. Thank you for joining the stream. As I'm looking at this here, I mean, this was kind of probably a relatively key pivot here. Deviation above this. Right. Do this in red. Just to really help with the thought process. I know we're a long way away from this at the moment, right? But look how price kind of settled into this area here. Rejection here, deviation, price gets underneath. Look how clean the retest of this area was here with the bodies. Wicks above, sell-off. Wicks above, sell-off. But what did we do here? What we did here exceptionally well was we were then starting to respect these. Yeah, we're starting to respect the bullish order blocks down here, right? Or areas of demand. Not a high probability one because it didn't sweep liquidity, right? But you can see price selling off here. What's it doing here? It's respecting the bullish candles, right? Price closes below it, can't close back above it. Price closes below it, can't close back above it until we get to here. So this for me is a really, really key area of mitigation, right? I'm just going to do this in an obnoxiously bright color. Why? Because this area here was the last bearish order block where price rejected here. Now the sellers had control of this area, and now the sellers have lost control of that area. right? So in losing control of that area, what does that tell us? Well, once again, the people that were betting on the market going lower here have now been caught offside. If they're not using a hard stop or their hard stop's high, they might decide here that the market isn't really playing out as they thought that it would. Price closing above this here, which we see we really struggled with, can lead to them to mitigate, right, to close those shorts out, ultimately then adding fuel to the bullish fire. They may also decide to flip long here to cover or to hedge. So this was a really, really good move through it. So what can we take from that to overlay onto the charts that we've got right here? Well, if we switch the chart right up, what can we see? We can see that BNB is just smashing into new territory. So what do we look at? When we're in a bullish trend, we look for the bearish candles to support price. This green box here being an example, and then this. So for anybody that's wondering, I use to draw these areas of demand or order blocks. When they're bullish, I use the flat top of the bearish candles, either a single or if they're consecutive, I make an allowance for all of them, unless it's a ridiculously large area, in which case I'll then move to a lower time frame to refine it. When price closes above, we then look for any discount buyers to move price higher. So where are we at the moment? Well, we're here in a beautiful bullish weekly area of demand, right? So as we move this down onto the daily now, we can see what was happening previously. We got this area here, price dipped back down into here. We got that structural shift and then price moved up. So now I'm just looking for the same on here. Yeah, I want to see price. Look, price has come up high, higher low, lower high. Price coming back down below this low here, or more so within this kind of area. Very, very interested here. We've got the down close candle before price moved above to take liquidity. So if I look at the low of this is where I'll set the breaker line. The low from here, which is attached to the down close candle body, price flushes out. If we get a close below this here, retests here will be for shorting. Yeah, but we're in a large area of weekly demand, all right? So we need to be cautious with that. Ultimately, let's remember where our higher probability trades get. Too many people get caught up on the time frames looking for chart patterns that are just areas that there's no real key levels, or buyers or sellers haven't been prominent there before. So the chart patterns have a much lower likelihood, of playing out. So where does that leave us? Well, quite simply, we want to look for bullish patterns in bullish areas of demand if we've got a bullish high time frame bias, which we do, all right, on these time frames anyway. This is looking at the daily. So if we do get the move below here, maybe we can get some cheeky intraday shorts in if we understand really, ATR, where we're trading to, what the catalysts are, key liquidity targets to catch those minor corrections. But actually what I'm looking for in here is for price to sweep some form of liquidity. And I would actually much prefer something like this, right? Price to kind of come in here, take that liquidity out, and then quickly shift structure back to the upside. These kind of patterns that you see, price taking out a low, you see a quick aggressive move back above it. What examples do we have? Well, we got these examples here, right? So what do we get? Price dipping in here. Look how we get this low taken out here, all right? What do we get? Liquidity below this low, liquidity below this low. Price sweeps it. We get this breakout. We get an inversion of this gap. This area here is a bearish gap, right? So we would expect price to reject there. It closes above, and we get a close above the breaker here. However, we see price inability to close above this high. Why is that high important? Well, this is the high that led to the sweep of the low. To confirm the breaker, we want to see price displacing above that. We didn't get it. So price then corrects back lower. No problem. What do? We're patient. Look at this area here. We sweep liquidity, which we take out from the low. We're crossed over, yeah, with our higher time frame gaps. And then we look to this area here. Price drives in. We get a very small inversion here, right, which is this bearish gap. Price closes above it. But ultimately, here is the breaker candle. Here's the breaker block, the area that led to the up before price swept liquidity. This is where bears want to control. Sellers want to control this area. They start exerting control here, but price just sticks to it, right? Then what do we get? We get the pop above it. We want to buy at a discount, and this allowed us to be market participants to trade it higher. That is the exact play that I'm looking for here on BNB. This is one of the strongest assets at the moment, backed still by the world's largest crypto trading company. It's very hard to fade these guys. And I'm just going to share a quick post with you all, which I did steal from my good friend and just wonderful fundamental analyst that works with us over at the Bird Nest. Let me see if I can find it to share. Here it is. He provided me with this chart. I absolutely ripped him off. I did let him know. And I posted this myself on Twitter, right? So it's just written up here. We saw high PPI numbers 2 weeks back with concerns over tariff costs hitting suppliers, and PCE data did very little to calm those fears. The major indexes finished down for the second consecutive week, and all those perma-bears are finally getting a twitch of excitement that they might finally be right. However, legacy markets aside, one person it proves costly to fade in this environment is CZ. All right. So I don't know, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably seen the fact that 29th of August, he said, things to avoid in crypto, selling the dip. And let's just look at those last kind of tweets from him in here. I'm not saying just blindly go in and follow this guy, but I am telling you, if there's anybody that really understands these markets on a deep level from an exchange perspective, very, very, very difficult to fade SZ on this. So let's CZ. Also really difficult to fade SZ. Still one of my favorite traders of all time. And every time I hear the word deviation, or any time I say the word deviation, I think of him. And Kit, hello, mate. Good to have you back with us. How should we learn doing analysis like you? Any courses? Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm going to recommend the company that, where I'm head of trading, which is the Bird Nest. It's Crypto Bird's trading company. Ultimately, our focus is on empowering everybody with the tools, education, and resources needed to pursue financial freedom. It's a motto that we're very, very serious about. So I would always recommend looking for deals and bits and pieces that come up from that. You can find that over on our website. You can also find information on the description. But in truth, there's a lot of really good free information out there as well, right? You can go onto our YouTube channel and you can find tons and tons. If you go under the live tab, you've got all of these shows. I do 2 of them every week and have done so for approaching 4 years for TBN now. You get access to all of that. You get the access to all the AMAs that we host. I'd really highly recommend the Congress events that we do. We do a free trading Congress every year. That has a ton of amazing free alpha in there. We interview some of the best traders in the world who come on, share their tips, tricks, and methodology. As for me, I spent sort of 3-4 years learning traditional markets. So Forex trading, indexes, equities, which are still my kind of bread and butter before I even came into crypto. When I did come into crypto, I spent about a year to 18 months really kind of learning the dynamics of the landscape. And then Adrian reached out to me. Crypto Bird gave me the opportunity to come and join the guys over at the Bird Nest to kind of really immerse myself more in the space with one of the best communities, one of the biggest education communities. And I haven't really looked back from there, to be honest. I think finding good communities, finding a small and really highly focused group of people, and that's what we get at TBN. Follis, a good friend of mine as well, who runs Chroma, is what those guys over there do exceptionally well. I'd always recommend following someone like Macro CRG. The guy's just one of the absolute monsters in the kind of spot space. It's really, for me, it's about finding good people, finding good mentors, people that you can learn from. Just don't go too broad, right? Don't try and understand and learn everything, right, in a microcosm. It's a storm in a teacup. Get a good broad understanding of the markets, but find an area you want to specialize in. Are you looking at swing trading? Are you looking at intraday trading? Are you somebody that likes to use indicators? Do you like to use price action? Maybe you don't. Maybe you have a demanding job and family life, which dictates that you should spend a little bit more time. That you can't spend as much time at the charts, in which case, fundamental spot trading, stuff like that could really be for you. So ask yourself those questions, all right? Reach out to people on Twitter, reach out to people like me, ask questions, where could I find this information? Where could I find that? But a really great place to start is our website. All right. Tashi Flask, there are a lot. I don't know if you meant to say nutters or nufters out there, but I'm loving this term nufters. Look, there's a lot of rubbish information out there as well, but there's also some really good stuff. One of the issues with this industry, and it was the same in traditional markets when I was involved in them, is there's a lot of scammy products as well. If anybody's trying to sell you a trading course or a trading system that always works, run a mile. The hard work that you're willing to put in will really be the barometer which will judge your trading career and how you can focus on constructive learning and practice. Find good people in the space. I would highly recommend people like Trader SZ if you're into price action as well. Obviously myself, I do a lot of education stuff as well. And then I think you can be in a pretty good space there as well. Def's Nufters. I love that. Nufters is just absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it will be interesting. WLFI. Let's take a little look at that actually today as well. because KZM, our fundamental guy, made me aware of that. We've got that shortly, actually. Let's see if that's the mass kind of pump and dump. My worry about this is all the private round early equity that went out went people with a very close network around Trump, right? Those people who already earned a lot of money on its launch price, but they also need exit liquidity to sell. Otherwise, they're just dumping on each other. And that's my concern about today's launch. So anyway, just to kind of get back over that point, hopefully that was helpful and Kit and anybody that's interested in learning. But to get back to the charts here, as we kind of look at this is the move that I want to see here on BNB. I think it's shaping up really well. I mean, you never want to be fading a chart that looks like this on the daily, looks like this on the weekly. Look, price could ultimately, this could be the top and things could break down, but we're not going to really know that until price starts getting back underneath these kind of areas. And even then, that could easily put a retest on this to move higher. Yeah, we've got probably about 6-7 minutes left in the show, Tashi, but can you just pop me a ticker, please, my friend? Wow, I've just been informed 2.6 thousand of you watching just through Binance. Thank you so much, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the TA on BNB. Hopefully it's what you wanted to hear. Ultimately nobody of Binance's stature would ever ask us to do this anyway. But if you ask me to review a chart and the TA looks shit, I'm going to tell you it looks shit. So, my excitement around BNB, I can assure you, is very, very genuine. And again, just ask yourself the obvious questions as well. Who's the major players are in the space? Who's got a great control of this space? Who are the good investments? What are the good dips for be buying? How does it align with narrative? And, you can come a really, really, really long way. So with that in mind, let's take a look. Aero. Yeah, no worries, mate. Well, to be honest, we're just going to take a look at a couple of others very quickly. Do obviously want to just look at ETH, and then we'll take a look at that. And WLFI, and then we'll call it a day, all right? So let's take a look where we are here with ETH. And let's do it on a nice fresh chart, all right? Now, we can see here, first thing that I'm looking at here is this. That, for me, is a really key area. Why? Resistance, 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 strong move above, retest, price coming up. So you want to see this area hold. Where else do I want to see hold? This, I do it in green so it stands out for you guys. That's our weekly. All right, so we can see that in there. Key support here. Weekly area of demand here, reacted beautifully at this inefficiency, just dipped into it a little bit, into this gap for that really strong move higher. So looking nice. Now, if we move down onto the daily, what do we want to see? Well, everybody kind of really starts to look negatively when the price comes back, all right? And I think ultimately you want to be getting excited. It reminds me of a very famous pit trader that I had the fortune to meet. He used to just scream at people in the pit if they were buying when the market was going up. You can obviously get good trades when the market's going up, but he would always scream, you should be buying when there's blood in the water, right? And blood in the water is here, blood in the water is here. If you know these key levels, you could have been a buyer down here. You could have already been making some money on this now. And if you're feeling uncomfortable here, you can just get out, all right? And you can look to get in a little bit higher. There's nothing wrong with that. You just want to wait for these corrective moves. Price seems to be finding a little bit of support below this low on the daily. So we're going to mark that in. We swept out this low. We continue to hold this bullish gap. Put this in here on our daily. So things here look, they're looking pretty good for ETH, right? What else do we have here if we're following the same principles? Well, look, this is the up candle, right? This is where the buyers stepped in here. They were offside down here. Price has now come back to this level, closing above this here. Will be that real first sign stage, for me, that this gap has held. We've swept the low, buyers stepped in here, close above this. We look for price to hold this area and ultimately continue to push higher. In terms of a more aggressive move, because we're holding this, we've had this nice impulse here. This happened yesterday. All right, we've now come into today, overnight. Now this area is again starting to hold. So we can see the gaps really doing a lot of the heavy lifting for price today. And let's just label this up as our 4 hour, right? Which for me is an H4. Why are these important? Just remember what I was saying before, right? If you're looking at these inefficiencies in the market, it's often because there's just been, very, very extreme buying pressure. Yeah. So the bids coming in very fast, failure for order pairing. Price then looks to rebalance these areas, giving buyers basically the opportunity to step in. If these areas fail, price is normally seeking these which are the consolidations before those large moves. And again, look, when we got into this area here, you can see as we track it across, that's where price dipped in. This area for me is controlling price at the moment. Yeah, on a micro scale, it's this and this gap, but I would still need to see price making moves below this before I would look to trade this lower. This low before we moved higher is really, really key. So as I'm looking at this here now, if I was super aggressive on this today, and I've outlined the reasons that I'm not looking to be, but if I get the right kind of setups, I will take them. Then in here, I'm looking for that same thing. We can see we got a nice kind of aggressive or relatively aggressive move up in London. Remember, futures and that are open, but it's, you know, ultimately the market participants and the aggression of the buyers and sellers that dictate where the market goes. We don't have that from the US at the moment. We can see this prior consolidation here is capping price action to the upside, and we can see that this is capping or holding price to the downside. So again, moves below this consolidation here and retests could be intraday shorts into support. Moves above this area here, this large consolidation, could give us that early stage impetus that we're looking to move a little bit higher. Ankig, one doubt, do we give importance to daily trend lines, volume areas of interest, example for Cardano's per my observation? Is it on key support area was 0.8 around Fibonacci and trend line? Really, trend lines, you're just identifying where the buyers and sellers are most are most involved. So for example, if you, even on a 15-minute chart, if you squidge this up here, you can see quite clearly, or certainly stands out to me, that this is a big area of interest here. And I'm including this consolidation down here as well, right? So what have I got by laying out this area, right? Well, what I've got is support, all of these leading to this one, leading to a really big impulse move higher. So buyers are in control of this area. When we lost this area, however, and we lost specifically this consolidation, this became the mitigation, right? So then look, rejection here. This is where buyers were strong before, now sellers have taken over. So we keep selling this area until we reclaim it and move higher. Now, for some traders, you'll see these areas laid out as boxes like I do. For others, you'll see them as lines. Some people will use volume. There's many different ways to kind of interpret this data. It's really what speaks to you. I do use volume in my trading as well. But typically, you can normally map out where these key areas are to the market, right? You only need to look down here and kind of say, well, actually, even if you drag it all the way back to here, and just looking at this area, this is clearly suppressing the market. Then we have this large expansion. So as we then track this forward, yeah, we can see the role that it still has to play. Now, if we put this on a higher time frame, and kind of move this back, then what you can see is some people will just be looking at this and saying, okay, if I want to use this as a key line, well, this is a pretty good area. It's not perfect, right? But we can see the resistance in here. You can see the support here. You can see the area being lost, rejection, price breaks above it, comes back down, deviation, price buys it up, price comes back down below and comes back above. I'll use lines if they're incredibly clear, but often for me, these areas are better represented as boxes, all right? So let me just clear this up for a minute before we go on to the next one, because here I can see a lot clearer. Okay, look, if I focus on the wicks of this area and try and just get as many wicks as I can without violating too many bodies early on, and then embody these wicks here, resistance turns support, if I then move that area across, yeah, we can see, and I normally do these in kind of a tealy blue color, that kind of just in terms of support and resistance, that's why these areas are key. So I'm not just looking here now and saying, okay, well, I'm just going to blindly put a limit order on there. Like I said, I find a time frame aligned that I like. So like 4 hour, it's natural for me to move to a 15-minute. I want to see these big expansive moves. I then want to see price come back in, retest these areas. All right, and that's where we get our breakers for. Yeah, up move here. Buyers were trapped. Price came back down. Perfect point to mitigate. They didn't. Still, strength stepped in here, retested these areas. Often present, decent buying opportunities. Right. So I am due with a student of mine in a couple of moments. So let's just take a very quick look, and we will look at this for you, mate, because I did say aero. Let's have a quick look. Where are we here? Let's have a look. Aero. Just going to do a very quick daily and then swift it onto the 4 hour. Maybe weekly quickly, just see if we're coming into any key levels. Boom. Weekly gap below us here, which is fine. I think daily, if I was looking at this is the area I'd want to see hold. Bullish at the moment. But again, look, it's not entirely here, but this area concerns me. This is where I'd look to be short here because, again, it's the breaker, right? This is the down close move. This is where the market was trying to be sold. Price moved higher. These people didn't cover that. They actually added, or other people added to the short. We've now closed back down below this. So, the people that were longing in here now have the opportunity to get out. We see the retest here. Now price is moving lower. Really want to see this hold and get back above this level here for price to move higher. And more importantly, this. Yeah, this is the breaker candle here, the up move before the flush on liquidity. I want to see price back above here before moving it up on arrow. I think we start closing in below this, and we also start closing in underneath these up close candles here, which we'll know by the end of today. This area would be a key point of rejection for me. I need to see price back above this to be going long. If not, I think we fill in this inefficiency that's down below us here. And actually, there's a really strong plan there on the daily, so we don't really need to move off of that. And that's definitely what I would be looking at. One more to cover very quickly, and then I'm going to have to shoot. WLFI, yeah. So here we go. Let's take a look here. Obviously, on a daily, we can see what happens. Price launches, big sell-off. Hype steps in, people now buying this up. On a daily scale, that's the candle that matters. We've had the expansion above this. This is the area to hold here. I think closes down below this. Ultimately, the key liquidity is here. Anybody that's involving themselves in this at the moment just needs to hope that the people don't just dump on them on the launch, right? What's capping the upside? This high. Yeah, at 0.3380. Why? Wicked up, couldn't close above. Wicked up, couldn't close above. Now we're looking for this area to offer support. If it doesn't, what happens to the low here? What's this? This is the down move before price moved higher. So if the people were shorting this is the perfect opportunity for them to get out at evens or roundabout. If we close below this, retests of this are taking it down to here, in my opinion. I'd be very, very cautious with this one today, guys. But, if you're looking at this on the 4 hour, the breaker for the 4 hour is here. You'd want to see a close above 0.3736. All right, guys. So hopefully that is good. Oh, no, Montreal, sorry, mate. I missed you there. Tashi, you're very welcome, mate, and Kit too. Montreal X, sorry for the random. No, always happy to answer your questions, guys. But is the live going to stay up? Yeah, absolutely. This is if you go over to the Burb Nest, BIRB, go to the Burb Nest YouTube channel under the live tab. Every single live I've ever done whilst here is available. And if you've got any questions, please do reach out. All right, legends. I will catch you all on Wednesday for our Alt Request show. For those of you with us over at the Burb Nest, I will see you there. A really big shout out to everybody that joined today, and a special mention for all of our fam over at Binance. Thank you all so much. I'll let you know what the viewing figures were for today. Let's get ourselves prepped. There's a little bit of blood in the water at the moment, but ultimately the macro picture has not changed. We remain bullish. We're looking for opportunities, but just remember to factor in the news, park your emotions, look for those good technical levels to be involved in. If you're wrong at those levels, wait, reassess, take on board the new data, and that's when we can move forward with a good plan that allows us to focus on execution. All right, everyone. I'll see you legends around the nest. And for the rest of you, I'll see you on Wednesday.